The story of Joseph is just so amazing in its twists and turns, and today's chapter is no different to the rest of the story. Some time later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. It's almost a throwaway line, isn't it? It just so happened that Joseph was there. And it's worth pausing there, isn't it? We are in the right place at the right time for God to be at work in God's purposes. That's how he rules and reigns in this universe. Paul in Acts 17 talks about all people are at the right time and the right place, according to God's purposes, that they might seek him and find him. And that speaks directly into our lives, even before we go any further in this story. It's no accident we are where we are, and we've got work to do that God has set for us in serving him faithfully. Now, our work might not be the excitement of rescuing the people of Israel like Joseph's is, but it's all part of God's eternal plan of salvation, and we have our part to play. And so this throwaway line, it just happened to be the same prison where Joseph was confined. This is so crucial to the whole plot's unfolding. Pharaoh's whims, Pharaoh's frustrations with his staff, Pharaoh's ability to just chuck them in jail when he's unhappy with them, all of this too lines up with God's purposes. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. After they'd been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who had been held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Just before we get there, let's not miss that phrase, after they'd been in prison some time. These things are not happening quickly. Joseph is having to learn patience and grace in a situation which, as we'll see in a moment, he views as unfair, and time is passing. And to him there's no understanding of why or what's going on. The timescales don't fit with what he would think, and he's just passively having to wait and to do the best he can and be content in that situation. Anyway, the next morning when Joseph came to them, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" So this is fascinating, isn't it? Joseph, who's unjustly in prison, could be so self-orientated and so taken up with himself, to be nonplussed, non-caring about these two individuals, but when he sees them dejected, he wants to know why they're sad. He cares for them. He's looking out for others, even in his own sadness. "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there's no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." Now this is fascinating as well, isn't it? Joseph had two dreams as a young man, of his family bowing down to him. Actually, things have not turned out that way at all. So far, he's been thrown out of the family home. We were given no indication that he thought they were from God, and we've been given very little indication of Joseph having a walk of faith with God. We've been told in the last chapter that the Lord is with Joseph, but not all else, and yet here in this moment, he very clearly demonstrates his confidence that interpretation of dreams belongs to God, and so asks them for their dreams. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." "This is what it means," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I've done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon." So here's Joseph. He's feeling very unjustly treated. He was forcibly carried off from his home to the land of Egypt, and he's not gone into the story or the details, but he doesn't deserve to be in prison. He's not done anything wrong. So he feels that injustice, and yet he still shows kindness and confidence in God's purposes working out, because he's confident in this dream being from the Lord and in its interpretation, and he asks for generosity from this cupbearer when he is restored. He has utter confidence. Can you see verse 14? When all goes well with you. Not if. He's absolutely sure that God has spoken to this man in a dream, and that the dream will come true. and that the Lord can be trusted in this. That is remarkable, and it's worth reflecting on. Often in life is out of control. Things don't happen as we would like them to. We are confused, struggling, feeling the sense of injustice, and yet we need to trust God's purposes and plans through that. Well, the poor chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favourable interpretation. He said to Joseph, "I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." This is what it means, Joseph said. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will eat away your flesh. And what a horrible message to have to give. Joseph could have lied. He could have tried to cover it over. What do you do in this situation? It's hard, isn't it? And yet Joseph is honest with the man. You want to know what your dream means. This is what is coming. We're not told what happens in the next 3 days. Did Joseph console this man in the meantime? Did he point him to the Lord? Did he seek to comfort him? We don't know. We just read on the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position, so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he impaled the chief baker, just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation. It's interesting, it doesn't say that as God had revealed to him, it is just his interpretation here. We're not being told that the Lord is involved in this in any way, but we can have certainty of that. Joseph himself said, "Does not the interpretation of dreams lie with God?" The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. When 2 full years had passed, now just stop there. Joseph already is unfairly treated, being wrenched from his home, now in prison unfairly. He's helped this cupbearer. He's watched him being taken from the prison, confident that God is going to answer his prayer, waiting to be remembered, hoping, and that day passes. Oh, well, of course, it's a busy day, things are going on. I'm sure it will be tomorrow. Next day passes. A couple of days pass. Surely, maybe he's just busy getting back to duties, and he's only the cupbearer. Maybe he hasn't had a chance to chat to Pharaoh yet. And a week passed, and then a month. And what's going through Joseph's mind? 2 full years passed. We're not told what Joseph went through in that time. We're not told what state of mind. That sense of injustice that was already there must have grown. That sense of feeling abandoned. And what is going on? Such a dark period. And it's important that we take note of these timescales. So often in the Bible we turn a page, we read a chapter, and things move on so quickly. But actually 2 years of nothing. And then Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile when out of the river there came up 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they grazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up out of the Nile and stood beside those on the river bank. And the cows that were ugly and gaunt ate up the 7 sleek, fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 ears of corn, healthy and good, were growing on a single stalk. After them 7 other ears of corn sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin ears of corn swallowed up the 7 healthy full ears. Then Pharaoh woke up. It had been a dream. In the morning his mind was troubled, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one could interpret them for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream. And things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was impaled." And so the moment has come. Now Pharaoh is having dreams, and Joseph has got a track record of being able to interpret them when none of the magicians can come up with a solution to Pharaoh's dreams. Suddenly the cupbearer remembers. 2 years. All preparation for this moment. And in the Joseph story, I think there is so much that obviously points us to the Lord Jesus Christ, in Joseph being the one who saves his people, having gone through unjust imprisonment, accusation of things he hadn't done, trusting the Lord, and then being raised from that pit to the kingdom, as we'll see in a moment. And so clearly he points us to Jesus, but also he helps us in negotiating and living in God's kingdom purposes through this world. And we need to always remember that grey-shaped curve, what goes down must come up. That is our calling. And it may be our circumstances are bleak and dark at the moment. We might not see a way through. It may be that we've been stuck in this place for a long time. But we can trust the Lord. He is working his purposes out. And it doesn't take away from the pain. It doesn't take away from the sense of injustice. It doesn't take away from the length of time and our sense of unfairness in it. But we need to trust the Lord. We need to keep showing love to those around us. We need to be patient and wait the Lord's timing in all of these things. Well, may God help you to do that today.